Hey guys, what's going on? This is Kyle from ProjectionHub, and today I'm going to be talking about how to create a business plan for a med spa. Now, what the purpose of this video is going to be, I'm going to show you 5 key points that I think will make your business plan shine for a lender. If you need to get financing for your new med spa, that is the purpose of this video. Now, I'm going to be going through this free example and template that you're welcome to download in the description of this video, totally for free, no strings attached. And as I'm going through it, and I will get to those different sections, those 5 key points, or I'll stop and give more details and give some examples and demonstrations and whatnot. So the goal of this video is to get you out of here with a ready-to-go business plan for your loan request. Now, who is ProjectionHub? We've helped more than 50,000 small businesses create financial projections for their loan applications, their business plans, their acquisitions, their investment pitch decks, you name it. And that includes recently med spas. It's one of a new area we've been serving in the last year, and we've had a lot of interest and success there, and have helped a lot of different med spas create their projections. And who am I? As I mentioned, my name is Kyle. I've spent a few years with ProjectionHub now, but before that, I was an SBA lender for 7 years, and that looked like helping business put together their loan applications, reviewing their business plans, taking them through underwriting. And during my time, I did get to work with actually a couple of med spas, but several spas in general too, so some familiarity with that. So if at any point you like this video, give us a thumbs up. That really helps us here at ProjectionHub as a fellow small business. You can subscribe to the channel as well if you'd like to. Not all of our content is geared towards med spas, but I think you might find it interesting. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay, so why is your business plan important? Probably sounds obvious, maybe cliche, that you would expect that you have to have a business plan, or maybe someone just told you have to have a business plan. But your business plan, the job of it is not to educate what med spas do, or what the industry does. The purpose of your business plan is to demonstrate your specific roadmap to be successful, whatever success is defined as in your case. And you want to give so much detail that your lender has all the confidence and no doubt that, yeah, this seems very tangible, very accessible. And if they follow through in these steps, that they will likely be successful and pay back their loan and everybody will be happy. So, as I'm going through this here, let's just stop and look at the table of contents. I want to point out one thing, and that's just to dispel a myth, is that your business plan doesn't have to be long. You'll notice here in this example, it's around 18 pages. And a lot of people think that their business plan has to be long to be really good. And I actually would argue the opposite side of that. During my time as a lender, I reviewed hundreds of business plans. And if you got a 50-page business plan or longer, there was no way every word of that was going to be read. And so it was a lot of skimming to be able to get through that. And so that would mean important details, if they're spread out throughout 50 pages, can really get lost. And so my advice to you is, if you feel like you need to create a 50-page business plan or 100-page business plan to get all your thoughts down on paper, definitely do that as an exercise. But then what you actually give to your lender should be a refined version of that, 20 pages, 15 pages, so that all of that is jam-packed with important information. That would be my advice to you. And if you don't want to do it that route, obviously you can just write 20 pages, and that's a lot less work than writing 50 pages. And hopefully this template will be helpful in guiding you through that. And I guess I'll also point out that almost half of that is the financial projections, and I'll show you why when we get there. So first off, let's talk about the executive summary. I want you to think about the executive summary like it is a cover letter or a resume for a job application. Here is your chance to just talk about the summary of maybe all of the different important parts of your business plan. A couple things that I'll point out here is, one, your objectives. I tend to recommend, if you're going to include objectives, your short-term goal should have some sort of specific measurable goal attached to that. So maybe this says top destination. That's generic. I would maybe say a target number of customers, or maybe is there like an award in the area you'd like to win, or maybe it's to break even by year 2. Make it something actually tangible. Long-term, it's okay if it's generic, or you could say this says expand the brand across Indiana. Maybe that looks like open 2 more locations or something like that, if you're going to be specific. Now, one thing our executive summary is missing here that I have seen before, but you don't have to do, is maybe including a section on the financials. So that could look like what your total startup costs are going to be, how much funding are you seeking, how large of a loan are you seeking, when you plan to break even, different things like that could be included in that if you'd like to. All right, now moving along to the company description. Now, if you'll notice, we haven't reached one of the 5 key points yet, so we're still working through things here. All of this is important. Those 5 key points are just going to be what takes a good business plan to a great business plan when it comes to talking to a lender. So stay tuned for that. Company description is like an extension of the executive summary we just went through, just giving more detail about the business. Company history, I would say this is more like maybe even a founder story. Here we're talking about Peter Sanders. Talk about that. Now, key point number 3, I have later down in the business plan, but could also be plugged in this part. So stay tuned for that. We'll come back up to this. But we're talking about some different things here. The only other thing I'll mention is your unique selling proposition. I wouldn't include that unless you're actually giving you something that actually is going to make you stand apart. You don't want to say something really generic that is hard to measure or really doesn't make you stand out all that much. It won't make a difference to a customer. But if it is actually something that would stand out, you're going to offer a brand new type of treatment that is only available in 3 cities in the country or something like that, then include that. That's a really big deal. Okay. Market analysis, starting to get into things here. And this will bring us to key point number 1. And the market analysis is we want to demonstrate that there's actually room in the marketplace for our med spa. Can the area where we want to open up our med spa support one more med spa is basically what we're trying to get at here. Or if there isn't a med spa, that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about that the opportunity is that it's a wide open market, or there's room in the market because it's growing, or it's saturated, but here's how we're going to disrupt the market. So those are the different avenues we need to describe here. So you can see how that's included. Industry overview. Do not give into the temptation to do the Shark Tank industry overview of it's a $3 trillion industry and we just need to capture 1% of it. Like, that's so unrealistic, especially for a med spa, because you're gonna have a physical location. Focus on your actual attainable, reachable audience. Giving some details there, right? So that might be like, you're in Indianapolis and there's 1 million people that live here and there's only 3 med spas or something like that, right? That's a helpful framing up of that. And then I think the other most important thing here is, before we get to key point 1, is the competitors here, right? So don't be afraid to name names. You don't have to name every competitor, but a simple way you could even go about doing this is you probably know of the med spas, but you're going to want to know every single med spa within probably a 20-mile radius of you, because there are some specialized treatments for med spas, so people will probably willing to travel a little bit further for them. Versus a hair salon, they might only want to travel 5 miles, but a med spa, they might be willing to travel further. And so you need to know all of your direct competitors that are close to you. I would probably list maybe the 3 most direct competitors, who they are, and then highlight what they do well or maybe what they don't do well. Here you can see a lot of these are rated really well, but maybe in your region, there's one other med spa and they have really bad Google reviews. So you could say that's a great opportunity. Our primary competitor obviously doesn't have super satisfactory service or something like that. Okay, but key point number 1 is all of those things that we just talked about right there. You need to include those. Those are important. What makes it even better is if you can demonstrate your local market with some sort of data or some sort of research. And you might be wondering, like, well, how do we do that? Maybe that's a little bit difficult. And I'll give you some examples. So you can see some are included here. If you download the business plan, you can read those as well. But I'm going to even just talk about example 4 here, local keyword search analysis. So here's a free tool. If you go to Google AdWords, which is how you would do Google advertising, you can create a free account. They have a tool in here called Keyword Planner Tool. What this allows you to do is simulate how often are certain search phrases being searched on Google in a specific area, okay? So I've set my location to Indianapolis, Indiana, because that's where our fictitious med spa is located. And I want to see how often are people searching for med spa near me and Botox near me. And this is going to do a few really helpful things. One is it's going to give me a bunch of other related search terms if I don't know a bunch to search for. 2, how often are those things being searched for? So this would allow you even to be able to see like seasonality. And then the most important thing, I think, is trend data. 3-month change and more importantly, year over year. How much are those search phrases growing or contracting? And that will help us start to identify growing demand in the area. Okay, so let's give some examples here. I noticed Botox near me, year over year is decreasing. Maybe that's nomenclature. Maybe people just are less interested in Botox. There's some promising things here. Med spa near me, up 91%. A lip flip, up 180%. So you can see that this is services that a med spa would offer. So that's helpful detail. But I really like the fact that I see MD spa and med spa both up 40%, 91%. So that does at least one thing. That indicates to me that there is a growing interest and demand in my target area for what I have to provide. Now, what this doesn't do is this doesn't really represent the supply side. This doesn't, or the saturation side, right? So interest and demand could be growing, but that doesn't necessarily mean are there too many med spas in the area. So that would probably be done through your kind of competitor research, right? You're looking at a 20-mile radius. How many competitors do you have in that? And you can deduce from that. Do you feel like it's gonna be super competitive, or do you have a pretty good shot at being successful? So do that kind of research, grab some screenshots, talk about that a little bit, include that in your business plan. That is an example of going the extra step to demonstrate that you're thinking about it strategically, okay? All right, moving on. Marketing and sales strategy. Here you're gonna talk about what it is you're actually providing, cost of that, how are you gonna sell that? Now we have some generic things you need to make sure you include and that you're planning to do. Like talk about advertising, you're gonna have a website, you're gonna be active on social media. That's all great. That's all dandy. You're gonna do email promotions, but that is minimum expectation that you're gonna do those general marketing efforts. What I think you need to do, and I think key point number 2 might actually be the most important key point of the whole business plan from my perspective, is you need to demonstrate how you're actually going to acquire those customers. So we just spent the last section demonstrating that there is a market. Now we need to prove beyond just generic, we're gonna have a website. We need to say, this is with a high degree of confidence, we're gonna have people that show up when we open the doors, and here's how. And the best way to demonstrate this is by showing a thing called traction. So traction is like a tech word that people like to use in the tech industry, but really it's an indication of momentum or interest. And so there are 2 great ways to demonstrate traction, and that is pre-launch revenue or pre-launch names, a list of names of interested people. Because of med spa, some of the services probably require like certification, and there's some details around that, like injections and whatnot. You're not gonna be like doing this on the street before you open up your med spa, and I'm aware of that. There are some industries that lend themselves better to pre-launch traction than others, but here's some examples. You could start doing some education material before you launch, right? So you could be doing Q&A sessions, you could do this says online skincare assessment tool. You could collaborate with a local fitness center. So maybe you personally become certified and you want to go to a gym or something and offers some services there. And you're doing that on the side beforehand, or maybe you work in a med spa and you have a clientele list and you plan to go launch your own med spa and you plan to have those customers come follow you. That is traction. Someone that works as a stylist at a hair salon, they have a book of business, and if they plan to go open their own, those clients are probably going to come with them. So they know they're starting with some income. That's a great example of traction. But let's say you have no customer base. You didn't do that before. An example of something you could do is start creating a list of people that would be interested in coming and using your med spa, right? Create a pre-launch VIP club, and those who join get a discount for the first year of their services and their name on the wall permanently, okay? It's just to point out here, like, 1, will money start flowing as soon as the doors open, instead of saying like, hey, on day 1 we open and now we're gonna start trying to get customers? And 2, this really demonstrates hustle. That goes a long way with lenders. Like, wow, they're serious about this. They put in the work to put themselves out there and collect the names of 375 people that are on this list that have said they'd like to use the services and plan to use them when they open. Or wow, she has 27 clients already. She's been helping for a year at her own salon and they plan to come join her. So those are great examples. And in this type of industry, let's say you are doing that at a different spa, you may have coworkers that want to come work with you. You can conclude their book of business too. So that's what can take this section from good to great. So good, we talk about how are we going to get the word out? What things are we going to generally do with the business? Great is we already expect this amount of people to be interested in the business because of this work we already did. And that can really make your business plan shine. Okay, moving forward, operations and management. So this is more like logistics. We're getting into talking about the management team, leadership team, how you're going to hire, how many people do you plan to have, what kind of, you can see equipment you're going to have here, regulatory compliance and licensing. So definitely important information. Don't leave that kind of stuff out. And this is where I was mentioning, I alluded to key point number 3. You could do it up in the company description, but you can also do it here. And that is relevant industry experience. So we need to prove and give confidence to our lender that we know what we're doing and we know what we're getting ourselves into. And so that looks like just highlighting the experience of you, the owner. Do you have any founders? Do you have any key employees that are going to play a pivotal role in you being successful in the business? This is important because maybe your experience as the owner is in a different industry, right? So maybe you've been a lifelong, or not lifelong, but maybe you've had a career in marketing and you really see an opportunity to open up a med spa. There are some transferable skills there, and you should talk about those. Like in my career doing this, like I was a really successful salesperson, good at advertising, maybe graphic design, like that's still helpful. But what you don't have experience in is operating a med spa and the services it provides. And so there's a missing link there. And if that's an example or a demonstration of where you would fall, you need to just round that out with someone else's experience. You need to have a partner join the team. A mentor usually isn't going to cut it by just saying, like, oh, I'm going to have a mentor that also has done this. Like, if that mentor is really involved, then maybe. But usually needs to be something a little bit more official, like an employee, a manager, a partner that has the experience missing that is necessary to run the business. So that's going to be key point number 3. Is you just need to make sure you highlight that your team is prepared to be able to actually execute a med spa, and you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing when you're going to open. So leave no doubt there, I guess is my point. Thunder. Okay, moving along to the big one here, financial projections. You have to have financial projections for a startup. This is the most important part of your business plan, not just biased because we're ProjectionHub. When I was a lender, this is where we spent the most. I would typically read the business plan once, and then we would refer to the projections many times after that when making a loan decision. And so you can see here we are including breakdown of our startup costs. I'll show you a little bit more here, that an example. We've got an overview of some of the financial data here. So we have revenue, cost of goods sold, gross profit, operating expenses. It's probably hard to read this. Let me zoom in a little bit. New clients, total client visits per day. So we're projecting those over 5 years. Some key ratios for each year and how those are going to develop: profit margin, profitability, revenue growth. And then we've got our monthly overhead. So this would be like our operating expenses that we need to account for. And then we've got 5-year pro formas or projected financial statements for a profit and loss, which would be like an income statement, cash flow projections, balance sheet, and we've got like a break-even point analysis here. So that, full transparency, because this is the point where founders' eyes typically glaze over and they're like, whoa, that's really overwhelming. All of those were created using this template, which is available. You can grab it, the link down in the description below. You have to have financial projections. Most people, myself included, don't know how to create financial projections from scratch. So that leaves them 2 options. They need to pay an accountant to do it, which can be really expensive, or they need to use a template or a tool to create the projections for them. Now, we can offer both of those services. We have people on our staff that will create your projections for you. We'll fill them out for you. Be happy to talk with you about that. But we also have these templates, which are a cheaper alternative and very easy to do as well. So you'll see here, these blue tabs are where you input your data. We've got some starting details here, like the things you need to buy and your loans and investments. And then this section, and this is what I think makes our templates really great, superior, not to sound bragging at all, is that a lot of projection templates will just ask you, like, what's your estimated monthly revenue? What our template does is it actually helps you calculate your revenue, because you may not know. You're like, well, I don't know what my revenue is going to be. And so what it's going to do is, you can see we're just touching the blue bars here, the blue cells, and most of them have a starting data point. So you don't have to start from scratch. And this is just going to help you figure out, okay, how much do you plan to spend on advertising? How much is it going to cost to attract a customer? How many of those are actually going to turn into a customer? How many will turn into regulars? What services are we offering? What percentage of which people do we estimate will use specific services? How much does each specific service cost? Are you going to sell products specifically, like over the counter? So it's just, again, there's a lot of information here, but we're just editing these blue boxes, and then that's going to calculate revenue for us. So our revenue is based off of relevant assumptions that you know about your industry, instead of just trying to pull a number out of a hat for estimated revenue. And we'll put in our expenses here, startup expenses and recurring. And then if we have salaried employees, that we will add them here. And then it's going to generate all of those charts and financial statements that you need for your lenders. So that is just a quick shameless plug. Again, that's linked in the description below. And if you hang around to the end of the video, I'll even give you a promo code for that. But having financial projections is not key point number 4. You have to have financial projections. Key point number 4 is they need to be realistic and within kind of industry expectations. And if maybe you're asked like, well, how do I know what's realistic? Good news is it's not that difficult to find out. One thing I'll say is if you create projections, or even if you don't use our template, use someone else's, we're happy to provide a free review. You can email us at support@projectionhub.com, send us your file. We'll give you some feedback, some free review of your projections. But what I would do is just go out and search for benchmark data. Okay, so I don't know if you're comfortable using a tool like ChatGPT or Bard or like a free AI tool. You can just ask it, what are some key data for a med spa? It'll give you a nice summary here. You can also just go to Google, typical profit margin for a med spa. Okay, so between 20 and 25%. Let's see what it said. Gross profit or we want net, 10 to 25%. Okay, so those line up, which is great. Now I'm going to go back to our projections. Profit margin. So they said 10 to 25%. So we are at 5%, 31%, 39%, 42%, 44%. Okay, so we're on the high side, right? So this is a good exercise, because if I gave my lender these projections right now, they might be like, that is an optimistic view. Maybe we need to either just be prepared to defend that. Like, why is that? What secret sauce do we have that makes us more profitable? Or do we need to go back and make sure that our expenses are accurate, or we need to reframe those and readjust those? So that is just that's a healthy exercise to do, just for you to understand like what's realistic for your industry and managing those expectations. But then also just like dialing in those projections before you give them to someone to review, because you don't only have one shot at them reviewing it, but it is good to make a first impression. And you don't want for them to say like, I think your projections are too high, and then come just randomly cut them and then give them back. You want to be thoughtful about why your projections are what they are, and not changing them just because someone told you that they were too high. So that's a good thing. Okay, now we're down to the end. Last key point. This is specifically if you're going to get a loan for your startup med spa, and that is being prepared to demonstrate skin in the game. Now, what that means is you've got to be in it with the lender. If they're going to take the risk to give you a loan, you also have to demonstrate you're taking some risk as well. And so, what does this look like? This can look like you're going to have to give a cash investment, right? If you need a loan for your business, the bank is not going to loan you 100% of the funds that you need. They might lend you 80%, 90%, but you got to come up with the other cash, right? So you're going to have a personal investment. You're going to need to have collateral. So med spas will have some collateral. If you own the building, that's great. You're going to have collateral. You'll have a little bit of equipment, but probably not enough to collateralize a loan. So they're going to want additional collateral. So that might look like a cosigner. That might look like a second mortgage on your house, a free and clear car, like something probably uncomfortable. And so when I was a lender, a lot of people would come to me and they said that they had received the advice to keep their business and their personal stuff separate. And so they didn't want their name on the loan. They just wanted the business on the loan. And that's great advice if it worked that way. That's just not how it works. That is great advice when it comes to your finances, like your bank account, your bookkeeping. Keep those two separate. But when it comes to the loan, you're going to have to be tied to it personally. You will sign a personal guarantee, especially if it's an SBA loan. And you're going to have to be prepared to give up something uncomfortable because they're trying to mitigate their risk. If their loan goes bad, they need to try to recoup as much as possible. And so I'm not telling you have to put in your business plan, here's all the things I'm willing to give away. I'm just telling you, when you're having that conversation, be prepared to know what you're willing to give and what you're not. And if you can't get to where they want to be, being comfortable, don't be upset about that. You just need to accept that and move on and maybe try a different place. So that's key point number 5, is just be prepared, have funding arranged, and just be aware of that. You're not just going to get a check and then be let off the hook if you aren't willing to repay that. So there you have it. The 5 key points to make your med spa business plan as good as possible and lender ready. As promised, let me grab that promo code for you if you are interested in the projections. If you use PH20BP, you can get a 20% discount on that template. It's already less than $100. So that's a really great price. Again, we've got a video that will show you how to complete your projections. And then we have free support as well. You can contact us at support@projectionhub.com if you have any questions at all. Give us a thumbs up on the video if this was helpful for you, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks.